The colony ship Horizon Dawn moved slowly through the dark space between stars. Inside the ship, 200 humans slept in their beds, dreaming of the new world they would call home. The ship had been traveling for 3 months, and they had 2 more months before reaching their destination. Everything seemed peaceful and safe. Daniel Morrison sat in the observation deck, unable to sleep. He was a tall man with rough hands from years of work. Before joining the colony mission, he had served in the military, then worked as an engineer. Now he was taking his family to start a new life on a distant planet. His wife Lisa sat beside him, reading reports on her datapad. She was a scientist who studied alien life forms, though she had never seen a living alien before. Their 2 children, Sophie and Jake, were asleep in their cabin down the hall. The alarm started without warning. Red lights flashed across every wall and ceiling. The ship's computer voice spoke in a calm tone that made the words even more frightening. Unknown vessels approaching. All passengers report to emergency stations. Daniel grabbed Lisa's hand and they ran toward their children's cabin. Other colonists filled the hallways, some still in their sleeping clothes, all with fear on their faces. Daniel had seen that look before during his military days. It was the look of people who knew something bad was coming but could do nothing to stop it. They reached the cabin and found Sophie and Jake already awake. Sophie was 10 years old with brown hair and bright eyes that always asked questions. Jake was 7, smaller than other boys his age, but brave in his own way. Both children looked scared but tried not to show it. "Dad, what's happening?" Sophie asked. Daniel knelt down to their level. "I don't know yet, but we need to stay together. Hold your mother's hand and don't let go." Through the ship's windows they could see them. 5 massive ships, each one 10 times larger than the Horizon Dawn. They were dark and covered in sharp angles, built for war, not exploration. The ships moved closer, surrounding the human vessel like wolves circling prey. Lisa's face went pale. "Krell," she whispered. "I've read about them in the xenobiology reports. They're conquerors. They take prisoners." The ship shook as something hit the hull. Then again, and again. The Krell were not asking permission to board. They were taking what they wanted. Metal screamed as the hull was torn open in multiple places. The air pressure changed, making everyone's ears pop. Emergency doors slammed shut throughout the ship, sealing off damaged sections. Daniel heard heavy footsteps coming down the corridor. Not human footsteps. These were different, harder, with a strange clicking sound between each step. He pushed his family behind him and waited. The door to their section exploded inward. Smoke filled the hallway, and through it came the Krell. They looked like giant insects that had learned to walk on 2 legs. Their bodies were covered in hard shells that shined under the emergency lights. They had 4 arms, each one ending in sharp claws. Their heads were the worst part, with mandibles that clicked and moved constantly and black eyes that showed no emotion at all. The Krell moved through the corridors with practiced efficiency. They carried weapons that looked like staffs, but electricity crackled at both ends. When one colonist tried to fight back, a Krell touched him with the staff. The man screamed and fell to the ground, his body shaking from the shock. "Don't fight them," Daniel said loudly so everyone could hear. "They'll kill us if we resist." But even as he said it, his military training made him look for weaknesses, for any chance to protect his family. A Krell guard approached them, and Daniel noticed how the alien studied each person carefully. The guard's mandibles clicked rapidly as it looked at Sophie and Jake. It made a sound that might have been laughter, though it was hard to tell with an alien. The Krell herded all the humans toward the ship's main cargo bay. They used their electric staffs to push people forward, not caring if the humans stumbled or fell. Families called out to each other, trying to stay together in the chaos. Some people cried. Others were silent, too shocked to make any sound. In the cargo bay, the Krell had set up a transportation field. It glowed with blue light and hummed with power. One by one, humans were pushed through the field and disappeared. Daniel knew they were being transported to the Krell ships. His family's turn came quickly. "Stay close," he told Lisa and the children. "No matter what happens, we stay together." A Krell guard shoved Daniel forward with its staff. He felt anger rise in his chest. Years of military discipline fought against his instinct to protect his family. When the guard raised its staff to push Lisa, Daniel moved without thinking. He grabbed the staff and shoved it back toward the alien. The other guards reacted instantly. 3 of them rushed at Daniel. He managed to block the first strike, but the second one hit him in the ribs. Pain exploded through his body as electricity coursed through him. He fell to his knees, gasping for air. "No!" Lisa screamed. She tried to reach him, but a guard held her back. Sophie and Jake cried out for their father. The children tried to run to him, but more guards blocked their way. Daniel looked up at his family through waves of pain. He wanted to tell them he was okay, that everything would be fine, but he could barely breathe. The Krell commander approached. This one was larger than the others, with scars across its shell. It looked down at Daniel with its black eyes and made a series of clicking sounds. Another Krell brought forward a small device and attached it to Daniel's neck. The device pricked his skin, and suddenly he could understand the clicking sounds. "This one has fight in him," the commander said. "That is good. The weak ones are boring." The commander looked at Lisa, then at the children. Its mandibles moved in what might have been a smile. A family unit, interesting. The small ones show curiosity, not fear. "The female studies us even now." "Yes, very interesting." Daniel forced himself to stand even though his body screamed in protest. "Leave them alone," he said through clenched teeth. The commander clicked with amusement. "You do not give orders here, human. You are property now, but do not worry. We have special plans for interesting specimens like you." More guards came forward and attached the translation devices to Lisa, Sophie, and Jake. Then the family was pushed through the transportation field. The world dissolved into blue light and reformed inside a Krell ship. The cargo bay they appeared in was massive, cold, and filled with prisoners from other species. Some looked almost human, while others were completely alien. All of them shared the same look of defeat and fear. The Morrison family was taken to a holding cell. The walls were made of some kind of transparent material that let them see other cells around them. Each cell held different prisoners, all watching the new arrivals with hollow eyes. The cell was barely large enough for the four of them to sit down. There was no furniture, no comfort, just hard floor and walls. Lisa pulled Sophie and Jake close to her. Daniel sat in front of them, his body still aching from the electric shock. He looked at his family and saw that Sophie was trying to be brave for her little brother, even though tears ran down her face. Jake held onto his mother's arm tightly. Lisa met Daniel's eyes, and in that moment they both understood how serious their situation was. "What do they want with us?" Sophie asked in a small voice. Daniel did not know how to answer. He had heard stories about the Krell during his military days. They were slavers, fighters, and they enjoyed making other species suffer. But he could not tell his 10-year-old daughter that. Instead, he said, "We're going to be okay. We're together, and as long as we have each other, we can handle anything." It was a lie, and he knew it. But sometimes lies were all a father had to give his children when the truth was too terrible to speak. Days passed in the holding cell, though it was hard to tell day from night in the constant artificial light of the Krell ship. Daniel counted 32 sleep periods before the guards came for them. During those days, the Morrison family learned to survive in their small space. They learned to ignore the sounds of other prisoners crying or screaming. They learned to eat the tasteless food the Krell provided. Most importantly, they learned to watch and listen. Lisa used her scientific mind to study everything. She watched how the guards moved, how they communicated with each other, how they treated different prisoners. She noticed that the Krell paid special attention to their cell. Guards would stop and stare at them, clicking to each other in their strange language. The translation devices only worked when the Krell wanted them to work, so most of the time the family could only guess what was being said. "They're talking about us," Lisa said quietly to Daniel one night. "I can tell from their body language. They point at the children, then at us. They're planning something." Daniel had noticed it too. He had also noticed that other prisoners avoided looking at them. It was as if the other captives knew something the Morrisons did not. Something bad. Sophie spent her time talking to Jake, telling him stories to keep his mind off their situation. She was good at it, making up tales about brave explorers and friendly aliens. Jake would listen with wide eyes, sometimes even smiling. It broke Daniel's heart to see his daughter trying so hard to protect her little brother's innocence. On the 32nd day, 6 Krell guards came to their cell. The door opened with a hiss, and the guards entered with their electric staffs ready. The commander from before was with them, the one with scars on his shell. "It is time," the commander said, his translation device turning the clicks into words. "You have been selected for a great honor." Daniel stood up, placing himself between his family and the guards. "What do you want with us?" The commander's mandibles moved in that terrible smile. "You will provide entertainment. The devourer has not fed in some time. It grows restless. Lisa's face went white. During her studies of alien species, she had come across references to the Devourer. It was a creature the Krell had captured from a dead world, a beast so dangerous that even the Krell feared it. They used it for sport, throwing prisoners into an arena with the creature and watching what happened. No one ever survived. "Please," Lisa said, stepping forward. "Take me, but let the children go. They're innocent." The commander clicked with what sounded like laughter. "That is why they are interesting. Innocence is rare. The Devourer will find them fascinating." The guards grabbed the family roughly. Daniel tried to fight back, but they were ready for him this time. 3 staffs hit him at once, and electricity coursed through his body. He fell to the ground, unable to move. Through the haze of pain, he heard Sophie and Jake screaming for him. He heard Lisa shouting at the guards, using words he had never heard her say before. They were dragged through the corridors of the ship. Other prisoners watched from their cells as the Morrison family was pulled past. Some looked away, unable to watch. Others stared with pity in their eyes. One prisoner, an alien with blue skin and 4 arms, pressed its hand against the transparent wall of its cell as they passed. It was a gesture of farewell. The corridors got colder as they went deeper into the ship. The air changed too, taking on a smell that Daniel recognized from his military days. It was the smell of death, of old blood and fear. His body still hurt from the electric shocks, but adrenaline was starting to kick in. He had to find a way to protect his family. He had to think of something. They emerged into a massive arena that took Daniel's breath away. It was carved from dark metal that seemed to swallow light. The ceiling was so high it disappeared into shadows. Around the edges, rising up in tiers, were seats filled with thousands of Krell. They clicked and chirped to each other, excited for the show about to begin. In the center of the arena floor was a pit, easily 100 feet across. Energy barriers surrounded it, glowing with blue light and humming with power. The guards threw the Morrison family onto the arena floor. Daniel caught himself and immediately reached for his family. Lisa grabbed the children and held them close. They stood in the center of the arena, alone and exposed, while thousands of alien eyes watched them. The commander walked to the edge of the pit and raised all 4 of his arms. The crowd fell silent. When he spoke, his voice was amplified so everyone could hear. The translation devices turned his words into something the humans could understand. "Citizens of the Krell Empire, I present to you fresh prey for the Devourer. These humans claim to be peaceful explorers searching for new worlds to settle, but we know the truth. Every species that claims peace is simply too weak to fight. Today we test these humans. We test their courage. We test their strength. We give them to the Devourer, the beast that has consumed champions from 100 worlds. Let us see if humanity deserves to exist or if they are just more food for the darkness." The crowd erupted in clicking and chirping. The sound was deafening, like 1,000 insects all making noise at once. Sophie covered her ears and pressed her face against her mother's side. Jake was crying but trying to be quiet about it. Daniel looked around desperately for any way out, any weapon, anything they could use. But there was nothing. The arena floor was smooth metal. The energy barriers were too strong to break. The only way out was through the pit, and he knew what waited in that darkness. The commander made a gesture with his clawed hand. At the far end of the pit, the energy barrier flickered and died. For a moment, nothing happened. The silence was worse than the noise. Everyone waited. Then something moved in the darkness of the pit. At first it was just a shadow, deeper than the other shadows. Then it grew larger. Something was climbing out of the pit, something massive and terrifying. The creature that emerged made several Krell in the crowd gasp. Even though they had seen it before, it still frightened them. Daniel understood why. The thing was like nothing he had ever seen or imagined. It stood 15 feet tall on 6 legs that looked strong enough to crush stone. Its body was covered in scales so black they seemed to absorb light itself. The head was wrong, all wrong, with too many eyes arranged in a pattern that hurt to look at. Each eye glowed with a dim red light. When it opened its mouth, rows of teeth that looked like crystal caught the arena lights and shined. The creature roared, and the sound went through Daniel's bones. It was not just noise. It was something deeper, something primal that spoke to the most ancient parts of his brain. Every instinct he had screamed at him to run, but there was nowhere to go. Lisa held the children tighter. Her scientific mind tried to analyze what she was seeing, but fear kept getting in the way. This creature was impossible. It was too large, too powerful, too perfectly designed for killing. and it was moving toward them. The Devourer's many eyes focused on the small family standing in the center of the arena. Its head lowered and it began to move forward. Each step was deliberate and slow, like a cat approaching a mouse. The creature knew it had time. The prey could not escape. Daniel pushed his family behind him. He had no weapons, no armor, nothing but his own body. But he would not let this thing hurt his children without a fight. If these were his last moments, he would face them standing up. "Lisa," he said quietly, "when it attacks me, run. Take the kids and run to the far side of the arena. Maybe the guards will stop it before it reaches you." "Daniel, no," Lisa said, but they both knew there was no choice. The Devourer was 10 feet away now. Its eyes never blinked. Its mouth opened wider, showing more of those terrible crystal teeth. Daniel could feel his heart pounding in his chest. His military training had prepared him for many things, but not this. Nothing could prepare someone for this. The creature took another step forward. The crowd of Krell leaned forward in their seats, eager to see the killing begin. The commander watched with his mandibles moving in anticipation. This was the moment they had all been waiting for, but then something unexpected happened. Sophie Morrison, 10 years old and small for her age, stepped out from behind her father. Before Lisa could grab her, before Daniel could react, she walked forward toward the creature. Her steps were small but steady. Her face showed fear, but also something else. Determination. Curiosity. The same look she got when she was trying to solve a difficult problem. "Sophie, no!" Daniel shouted, reaching for her. The Devourer moved with shocking speed. In less than a second, it crossed the space between them and placed its massive body between Sophie and her father. But it did not attack. It stood there, blocking Daniel but not threatening. Its many eyes focused entirely on the small girl standing before it. The arena fell completely silent. Not a single Krell made a sound. Even the commander's mandibles stopped moving. What was happening was impossible. The Devourer did not hesitate. It did not show mercy. It killed. That was what it did. That was what it had always done. Sophie looked up at the creature towering over her. She should have been terrified. Any sane person would have been. But instead, she tilted her head to the side, studying it the way she studied everything that interested her. Sophie stood perfectly still as the massive creature loomed over her. The Devourer's many eyes studied her with an intensity that should have been frightening. But something in those glowing red eyes made Sophie think of sadness instead of anger. She had seen that look before in the eyes of a dog that had been hurt by someone it trusted. "You're scared," Sophie said softly. Her voice was so quiet that even her parents barely heard her. But somehow the creature heard, its head tilted to the side, mimicking her gesture from a moment before. "You don't want to hurt anyone." "They make you do it, don't they?" Daniel wanted to rush forward and pull his daughter away, but something stopped him. The creature had moved so fast before, putting itself between him and Sophie. If it wanted to hurt her, she would already be dead. But it was not attacking. It was listening. Lisa's scientific training kicked in despite her fear. She studied the creature's body language, the way it held itself, the position of its head and eyes. Everything she knew about animal behavior told her that this was not an aggressive stance. This was curious, maybe even gentle. The Devourer lowered its massive head slowly, carefully until it was level with Sophie's face. This close, she could see details that were hidden before. The scales were not just black. They had tiny patterns in them, like writing in a language no one could read. The eyes were not all the same. Each one was slightly different in size and color. And when the creature breathed, the air that came from its mouth was warm and smelled like old metal. Sophie reached up with one small hand. The crowd of Krell gasped. Several guards raised their weapons ready to fire, but the commander held up a hand, stopping them. He wanted to see what would happen next. The girl's hand touched the creature's scales. They were warm and smooth, not cold and rough like she expected. The creature made a sound, low and rumbling, that vibrated through the ground. It was not a growl. It was something else. Something almost like the purr of a very large cat. "You're lonely," Sophie said, tears forming in her eyes. "You've been alone for so long." The creature's eyes dimmed slightly, the red glow fading to something softer. One massive claw, each talon as long as Sophie's arm, extended slowly. The girl did not flinch. She watched as the claw moved toward her face with incredible care. The tip of one talon touched her cheek, gentle as a feather. It was a gesture that spoke of recognition, of connection, of something that had been missing for a very long time. Daniel could not believe what he was seeing. His daughter, his little girl who was afraid of thunder and cried at sad movies, was standing face to face with the most dangerous creature in Krell space, and the creature was being gentle with her. Lisa took a step forward, moving slowly like Sophie had. The Devourer's eyes shifted to her, but it did not move away or show aggression. She approached until she was standing beside her daughter. Up close, the creature was even more impressive. Its body was covered in old scars, marks from weapons and claws and things Lisa could not identify. This being had fought for its life many times. "Daniel," Lisa called softly. "Come here slowly." Daniel did not want to. Every instinct told him this was wrong, that the creature would attack. But he trusted his wife's judgment. He had seen her work with animals before, had seen her calm, aggressive creatures with nothing but patience and understanding. He walked forward slowly, his hands visible and open. The Devourer watched him approach. Its body tensed slightly, defensive but not threatening. Daniel stopped a few feet away, giving the creature space. He could see now what Lisa had noticed. This was not a mindless beast. The eyes held intelligence, awareness, understanding. Whatever this creature was, it was thinking and feeling. Jake, not wanting to be left behind, ran to his family. He was too young to understand the danger, or maybe he understood something the adults did not. He wrapped his arms around one of the creature's massive legs and looked up with a smile. "Big doggy," he said. The Devourer looked down at the small boy clinging to its leg. Its mouth opened, showing those crystal teeth, but it was not threatening. If anything, it looked confused. Then it did something that made the entire arena gasp. It lowered itself to the ground, carefully arranging its legs so it would not crush the humans. Its head came down to rest on the metal floor, and it looked at the Morrison family with all of its eyes. It was the posture of submission, of surrender, of trust. Lisa knelt down beside the creature's head. She placed both hands on its scales and closed her eyes. As a xenobiologist, she had trained in empathic connection, a technique used to understand alien psychology. She had never tried it with a creature like this, but she had to know the truth. Images flooded her mind, not words but feelings and memories. She saw a beautiful world with purple skies and silver oceans. She saw cities built from crystal that sang in the wind. She saw beings like the Devourer, but smaller and covered in colorful patterns. They were dancing, playing, living in harmony. This creature had a name, though it could not be spoken with a human mouth. It had a family. It had a home. Then the images turned dark. Ships appeared in the sky, Krell ships. Fire rained down on the crystal cities. The beings tried to fight, but the Krell were too many, too strong, too cruel. The world died. The cities shattered. The family was torn apart. And this creature, the last of its kind, was taken as a prize. For centuries it had been kept in that pit. For centuries the Krell had thrown warriors and champions at it, forcing it to fight or die. It had killed so many not because it wanted to, but because it had no choice. Each death added to its pain, to its loneliness, to its despair. It had forgotten what kindness felt like. It had forgotten that not all beings were cruel, until today. Until a small human girl looked at it and saw a person instead of a monster. Lisa opened her eyes with tears streaming down her face. "Oh God," she whispered. "What they did to you. What they made you become." Daniel saw his wife's face and understood. "It's not an animal," he said. "It's a person. A prisoner, like us." The commander's voice boomed across the arena, anger clear in every word. "What deception is this? What trick do the humans play? The Devourer has never shown submission. It has consumed the finest warriors of 100 species. It has torn apart champions and heroes without mercy." Lisa stood up and faced the commander, her fear replaced by righteous anger. "That's because you've been throwing at warriors," she shouted back. "You've been sending it fighters and killers and people who came at it with weapons and aggression. You've been feeding its trauma for centuries. You turned it into the very thing you wanted it to be." She pointed at the creature, still lying peacefully on the ground with Sophie stroking its head and Jake leaning against its side. "This being is intelligent. It's aware. It understands what's happening to it. You didn't capture a beast. You captured a person, destroyed their world, killed their family, and then tortured them for entertainment. And you call us the inferior species?" The arena erupted in angry clicking and chirping. The Krell did not like being challenged, especially not by a human prisoner. But Lisa did not back down. Years of scientific study had shown her the truth that the Krell refused to see. They had committed a terrible crime and they did not even know it. The creature lifted its head and looked at Lisa. In that moment, she felt a connection form between them. It was recognizing her not just as someone who was kind, but as someone who understood, someone who saw the truth. The creature's eyes glowed brighter, but with something other than the anger and pain that had fueled it for so long. Hope. It was feeling hope for the first time in centuries. Daniel helped Sophie and Jake stand up, but they stayed close to the creature. His military training told him that the situation was about to get worse. The Krell would not accept this. They could not accept it. To do so would mean admitting what they had done, and conquerors never admitted their crimes. Sure enough, Commander Threk descended from his viewing platform to the arena floor. He walked toward them with his electric staff raised. Behind him, a dozen guards followed with weapons ready. The crowd was shouting now, calling for blood, for punishment, for the natural order to be restored. "This changes nothing," Threk said, his mandibles clicking rapidly with rage. "You are all prisoners of the Krell Empire. The Devourer is our property, captured in rightful conquest. If it will not kill you, then you will all die together." He raised his staff ready to strike Lisa, but the Devourer moved faster than anything that large should be able to move. It rose to its full height in an instant, placing itself between the Morrison family and the Krell commander. The creature's eyes blazed with red light, brighter than before. Its mouth opened wide, showing every one of those crystal teeth. And it roared. The sound was different this time. Before, it had been the roar of a beast, mindless and aggressive. This was the roar of a warrior, someone who had chosen a side and would defend it with everything they had. The energy barriers around the pit cracked and shattered. The metal floor of the arena buckled and bent. Every Krell in the crowd felt primal fear run through their bodies, the ancient instinct that told prey to run when a predator was near. But the Devourer did not attack the Morrison family. It positioned itself around them, creating a living shield with its body, its tail wrapped protectively around the humans and its 6 legs planted firmly on the ground. The message, Commander Threk stood frozen, his staff still raised but his confidence shaken. Behind him, the dozen guards had their weapons pointed at the Devourer, but none of them fired. They had all seen what this creature could do when it was angry. They had all watched it tear apart beings far stronger than themselves, and now it was angry in a way they had never seen before. The crowd of Krell had gone silent again. Some were clicking nervously to each other. Others were backing away toward the exits. A few of the older Krell, veterans who had seen many battles, watched with what might have been respect in their black eyes. They recognized a warrior protecting something valuable when they saw one. Lisa stepped forward, moving out from behind the Devourer's protective stance. Daniel tried to pull her back, but she shook her head. She knew what she had to do. If there was any chance of getting out of this alive, she had to make the Krell understand what they had been doing. "Look at it," she shouted, pointing at the creature. "Really look at it. Stop seeing it as a weapon or a monster and see it for what it truly is." Threk's mandibles clicked in anger. "It is a beast, a tool, nothing more." "Then why does it choose?" Lisa challenged. "Why did it protect my daughter instead of killing her? Why is it defending us now instead of attacking everyone in this arena? Beasts don't make choices. They act on instinct. This creature is thinking, feeling, deciding. That makes it a person, not a tool." She walked closer to the commander, close enough that the guards shifted nervously. "When did you capture it?" she asked. "How long has it been in that pit?" Threk hesitated. "That is not your concern, human." "Tell me," Lisa insisted. "How long?" An old Krell in the front row of the audience spoke up. His shell was covered in more scars than Threk's, marking him as a warrior from an earlier time. 347 cycles, he said, his voice carrying across the arena. "I was there when we took it from its dying world. I was young then, barely out of training. The creature fought to protect its young. We killed them all, and took this one because it was the strongest." The old Krell looked at the Devourer with what might have been shame. "We did not know then what we were taking. We thought it was an animal, dangerous but simple. It was only later, after years in the pit, that we began to suspect it was more. But by then, It had killed so many. It had become what we made it. Changing our minds would have meant admitting we were wrong. Lisa turned to face the crowd. 347 years, she said loudly. That's how long you've been torturing a thinking being. You killed its children in front of it. You destroyed its world. You threw it in a pit and forced it to kill or be killed. You took someone's loved one, someone's parent, and turned them into your entertainment. She pointed at Sophie and Jake, still standing close to the creature. My daughter saw what you couldn't see. A 10-year-old child understood what your entire empire refused to acknowledge. She saw past the monster you created and recognized the person underneath. The devourer made a low, rumbling sound, not aggressive, but mournful. It was a sound of agreement, of pain finally being acknowledged. Its eyes, all of them, focused on Lisa with gratitude. Daniel joined his wife, standing beside her to show unity. In human culture, he said, there's a saying. The measure of a civilization is how it treats its weakest members. You failed that test. You've proven that your empire is built on cruelty and ignorance. Threk's rage finally overcame his fear. Enough, he shouted. You are prisoners lecturing your captors. This is unacceptable. Guards, kill them all. Kill the humans and kill the devourer. We will find other entertainment. The guards raised their weapons, energy crackling along the barrels. The Morrison family instinctively huddled closer together. The devourer tensed, ready to defend them, but before anyone could fire, the old Krell veteran stood up from his seat. No, he said simply. His voice was not loud, but it carried authority that made the guards hesitate. Threk spun to face him. This is my command, Elder Krax. You have no authority here. I have the authority of age and experience, Krax replied. He began walking down the steps toward the arena floor. Other elderly Krell followed him, forming a group behind him. I have watched this empire for longer than you have been alive, Threk. I have seen us conquer 100 worlds. I have participated in victories that are now legend. But I have also seen us make mistakes. He reached the arena floor and approached the devourer slowly, with his weapons lowered. The creature watched him, but did not attack. Krax stopped a respectful distance away and looked up at the being that had been their prisoner for so long. I am sorry, Krax said. The translation device made the words sound strange in his clicking language, but the meaning was clear. I was young and followed orders, but that is not an excuse. I helped destroy your world. I helped take you from your home. And for 3 centuries I have said nothing while you suffered. I am sorry. The devourer stared at the old Krell for a long moment. Then slowly, it lowered its head in acknowledgement. Not submission this time, but acceptance of an apology given honestly. Other elderly Krell came forward, each one offering their own apologies. Not all of them had been at the capture, but all of them had watched the devourer fight over the years. All of them had enjoyed the entertainment without questioning what they were watching. Now, faced with the truth, they could not hide behind ignorance anymore. Threk watched this with growing horror. His authority was crumbling in front of everyone. You are all weak, he spat, allowing sentiment to cloud your judgment. The devourer is a weapon, nothing more, and these humans will die for their disrespect. He raised his staff and fired at Lisa. The energy bolt shot forward, crackling with deadly power. But the devourer was faster. Its tail whipped around and absorbed the blast, the scales glowing briefly before returning to black. Then it moved. The creature did not kill Threk. Instead, it simply plucked the commander off the ground with one massive claw and held him in the air like a child holding a toy. Threk struggled and clicked in rage, but he might as well have been fighting against a mountain. The devourer brought him close to its face and looked at him with all of its many eyes. In that moment, Threk finally understood what the humans had been saying. He saw intelligence in those eyes. He saw judgment. He saw a being that had every right to kill him but was choosing not to. The realization broke something in him, and he stopped struggling. The devourer set him down gently and stepped back. Threk fell to his knees, his staff clattering on the metal floor. His mandibles moved, but no sound came out. He had been shown mercy by the very being he had tormented for years, and he did not know how to process that. Sophie walked over to the commander and looked down at him. "It forgave you," she said simply. "Even after everything you did, it chose to be kind instead of mean. Maybe you should try that sometime." Lisa felt tears on her face again. She knelt down beside the devourer and placed her hand on its scales. Through their connection, she felt what the creature was feeling. It was tired. So tired. Centuries of fighting had worn it down to almost nothing. The only thing that had kept it going was the faint hope that someday, someone would see it for what it really was. Today, that hope had been fulfilled. A small human girl had looked past the monster and seen the person. And now, for the first time in 347 years, the devourer felt something other than pain and loneliness. It felt belonging. "What happens now?" Daniel asked, looking at Elder Krax. The old Krell considered the question carefully. Around them, the arena was in chaos. Some Krell were arguing with each other. Others were leaving, unable to face what they had learned. The guard stood uncertain, waiting for orders that no one was giving. "That depends on the devourer," Krax said finally. He looked at the massive creature. "You have been a prisoner long enough. If you wish to kill us all, we could not stop you. If you wish to leave, we will not stand in your way. The choice is yours." The devourer looked at each person in turn, the old warriors who had apologized, the confused guards, the Morrison family who had shown it kindness. Then it looked at the pit where it had been kept for so long. Its eyes dimmed with sadness. Through her connection, Lisa felt what the creature wanted. "It wants to leave," she said quietly. "But it knows that if it goes, the Krell will hunt it. It will never be safe. And it knows that we will never be safe either. They'll kill us to hide what happened here today." Krax nodded slowly. "You speak truth, human. There are many in the Empire who would rather destroy all evidence than admit what we have done." "Then we leave together," Daniel said firmly. "All of us. The devourer shows us how to escape and we take it somewhere safe. You would trust it?" Threk asked from where he still knelt on the ground. His voice was different now, smaller, confused. "After seeing what it can do?" "Yes," Sophie said without hesitation. "Because it's our friend." The devourer rumbled softly, and Lisa felt a wave of emotion from it. Gratitude, joy, hope. The simple word friend meant more to this ancient being than any of them could understand, was clear to Ever. Elder Krax looked at the devourer, then at the Morrison family, then back at the confused guards and angry crowd. He made a decision that would change everything. "Go," he said simply. "All of you. I will give you what time I can." Threk looked up at him in shock. "You would betray the Empire?" "I would correct our mistake," Krax replied. "Something we should have done centuries ago." He turned to the other elderly Krell who had apologized. "Will you stand with me?" One by one they nodded. There were 12 of them in total. Old warriors who had seen enough death and cruelty to last a lifetime. They formed a line between the Morrison family and the rest of the arena. "The devourer knows this ship better than any of us," Krax said to Lisa. "It has been here for 3 centuries. It knows every corridor, every weakness, every secret passage. Trust it." The devourer made a low sound and began moving toward one of the arena walls. The Morrison family followed closely, with Sophie holding one of its massive claws like a child holding a parent's hand. The creature led them to a section of wall that looked like all the others. But when it pushed against it with one claw, a hidden panel opened. Behind them, younger Krell warriors were pushing forward, trying to get past the elderly guards. Krax and his companions held their ground, weapons raised. They would not kill their own kind, but they would slow them down. The hidden passage was dark and narrow, barely wide enough for the devourer to fit through. Daniel went first with Jake, then Lisa with Sophie, and the creature brought up the rear. Its body filled the passage completely, blocking anyone who might try to follow. They moved through the darkness for what felt like hours but was probably only minutes. The devourer seemed to know exactly where it was going, never hesitating at intersections or crossroads. Sometimes they heard sounds from the other side of the walls, Krell soldiers searching for them, but the creature always led them around the danger. Finally, they emerged into a massive bay filled with ships. Daniel recognized some of them. These were captured vessels from dozens of species, including the Horizon Dawn. The Devourer led them directly to the human colony ship. "How do we get it open?" Lisa asked, looking at the sealed airlock. The creature examined the door with its many eyes, then placed one claw on the control panel. Energy crackled from its body into the panel, and the door hissed open. Lisa stared in amazement. The Devourer had just hacked a complex security system through nothing but raw energy manipulation. It was far more intelligent and capable than anyone had guessed. Inside the ship, they found the other colonists still in their holding cells. The Krell had kept them alive but imprisoned, probably deciding what to do with them. Daniel and Lisa quickly freed everyone while Sophie and Jake stayed with the Devourer. The colonists were confused and frightened, especially when they saw the massive creature. But the Morrison children explained what had happened. "It saved us," Sophie told them, "and now it's helping us escape. We have to take it with us." Some colonists were afraid, which was understandable, but most of them trusted the Morrison family. And if Daniel and Lisa said the creature was safe, then they would believe it. They began preparing the ship for departure, working quickly because they knew the Krell would find them soon. The Devourer watched them work with its many eyes. It could not help much because the ship was built for beings much smaller than itself. But it stayed close to the Morrison family, as if afraid they might disappear if it looked away. Lisa went to the ship's communication system and opened a channel to the Krell vessel. She knew this was risky, but she had to try. "Elder Krax, can you hear me?" A moment of static, then Krax's clicking voice came through. "I hear you, human Lisa. You should leave now. The young ones are getting past us. I do not think we can hold them much longer." "Come with us," Lisa said. "You and the others who helped. You don't have to stay here." There was a long pause. "No," Krax said finally. "This is our empire, our responsibility. We must stay and try to make it better from within. But know that your kindness today has changed us. Perhaps there is hope for the Krell after all." "Thank you," Lisa said quietly, "for giving us a chance. Thank you for showing us the truth. Now go quickly, and take care of the Devourer. It deserves peace after so much suffering." The channel closed. Lisa felt tears on her face again but pushed them away. There would be time for emotion later. Right now, they needed to survive. Daniel took the pilot's seat. He had training in ship operations from his military days, though nothing as large as the Horizon Dawn. But the controls were similar enough, and desperation made him confident. The engine started with a roar, and the ship lifted off the docking bay floor. Alarms immediately began blaring throughout the Krell mothership. Energy barriers activated, trying to seal the bay. But the Devourer was ready. It had positioned itself near the ship's exit, and now it used its massive body to tear through the barriers like paper. Electricity crackled across its scales, but it did not stop. It would not stop. Not until its new family was safe. The Horizon Dawn flew through the opening the creature had made. Behind them, Krell fighters launched from other bays, pursuing them. Energy blasts struck the colony ship's shields, making the whole vessel shake. The colonists held on to whatever they could find, some praying, others crying, all hoping they would survive. But the Devourer was not finished. From the torn opening in the docking bay, it looked at the Krell fighters pursuing the human ship. Its eyes blazed with red light, brighter than anyone had ever seen them. And it roared one final time. The sound carried through space itself, impossible but real. Every Krell pilot felt that roar in their bones, felt the ancient warning that came with it. Some of them turned back immediately. Others hesitated. None of them wanted to face the Devourer's wrath. From inside the ship, the Morrison family watched through the view screen as the creature clung to the outside of the Krell mothership. They realized what it was doing. It was staying behind. It was making sure they escaped, even if it cost its own life. "No," Sophie cried out, pressing her hands against the screen. "Come with us, please." But the Devourer had made its choice. It began tearing into the mothership's hull, ripping through metal and circuits with its claws. Explosions bloomed across the massive vessel as critical systems failed. The Krell pilots broke off their pursuit, turning back to try to save their own ship. Lisa felt the connection between her and the creature stretch thin as the distance grew. Through it, she felt what the Devourer was feeling in its final moments. Not fear, not anger, peace. For the first time in 347 years, it felt peace. It had found kindness. It had found family, and now it was protecting that family the only way it knew how. The Krell mothership began to break apart. Secondary explosions rippled across its surface as the Devourer continued its destruction from within. The creature was centuries old, impossibly strong, and filled with righteous fury. It was making sure that no one from this ship would ever threaten the humans again. "We have to go back," Sophie sobbed. "We can't leave it." Daniel's hands gripped the controls tightly. Every instinct told him to turn the ship around, to try to save the being that had saved them. But he knew they could not. The mothership was dying, and if they went back, they would die with it. The Devourer knew this. That was why it had stayed behind. Through the view screen, they watched as the massive Krell vessel split in half. Escape pods launched in all directions as the crew abandoned ship. And somewhere in that chaos inside the dying vessel was the creature that had chosen kindness over cruelty, chosen to protect rather than destroy. The ship exploded in a flash of light so bright that it hurt to look at. When the light faded, there was nothing left but debris and drifting escape pods. The Devourer was gone. Sophie collapsed to the floor, crying. Jake joined her, his small body shaking with sobs. Lisa held her children close, her own tears falling freely. Daniel set the ship to autopilot and came to join his family, wrapping them all in his arms. Around them, the other colonists stood in silence. Many of them were crying too. They had only known the creature for a short time, but what they had witnessed in the arena had changed them. They had seen something impossible, something beautiful. They had seen a monster become a hero. Days later, when they were safely away from Krell space, the colonists held a memorial service. They had no body to bury, no grave to visit, but they needed to say goodbye. Sophie stood at the front of the gathering and spoke in her young, clear voice. "The Devourer didn't have a name that we could say," she told everyone, "but it didn't need one. We knew what it was. It was a parent who lost its children. It was a prisoner who never gave up hope. It was a warrior who chose to protect instead of destroy, and it was our friend." She held up a drawing she had made, showing the creature with its many eyes and black scales, but in her picture, it was surrounded by stars and looked peaceful. "I think it's back home now," she said. "Back with its family on that world with the purple sky and silver oceans. And I think it's happy." Lisa looked at her daughter's drawing and felt the last echoes of their connection fade away. But just before it disappeared completely, she felt one final emotion from the Devourer: gratitude. It was grateful that someone had finally seen it, really seen it, and recognized the person it